All right, time to dive into this IAC thing. You've sent over a mountain of info, articles, case studies, even the state of IAC report. Looks like Firefly. They're the cloud asset folks, right? They're making some noise.
They are, yeah.
But hold on, before you even get to them, everyone's talking about IAC. What's the big deal? Why is it so important?
It is kind of fascinating, right? Cloud computing was supposed to be all flexible, scalable, but it's like opening Pandora's box, this constant growth, constant change of cloud stuff. Imagine, just try to picture hundreds, thousands of servers, databases, applications, all changing all the time.
So hold on, if I'm trying to find like a specific server setup from a year ago without IAC, I'm basically toast.
You're digging through digital paperwork, at best. Maybe some old wiki page someone forgot to update, or worse, asking that one guy who left the company 6 months ago. Or even worse, clicking through menus forever.
ClickOps, right. I saw Firefly mention that.
Exactly. Their blog goes into how bad that gets, especially as companies grow inefficient, risky, the works.
So instead of a well-organized system, it's more like my grandmother's attic, full of stuff nobody remembers.
For a lot of companies, that's not far off, and it gets expensive. That State of IAC report, they found companies are basically paying someone a full salary just to write IAC and try to wrangle all this.
Wow, okay, so this isn't just a buzzword. Businesses are putting real money behind it. There's got to be a payoff.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
IAC, it's not magic, but it brings order to the chaos. It takes how software developers work and applies it to infrastructure. So instead of setting up each server by hand, you write code to say, this is what I want.
Like a recipe for your infrastructure instead of winging it every time.
Exactly. You can spin up the same environment for testing, development, different clients, whatever, same every time. Less room for error, way easier to change, you update the code, not a zillion settings by hand.
And if something breaks, you can roll back to the last version. That's huge. But I'm getting the feeling that not everyone's using IAC as much as they could. Firefly's report, they talked about a gap between like the ideal and what's actually covered by IAC, right? What's the deal there?
You're catching on quick. Yeah, it's a big problem, a costly one. Firefly estimates 80% of cloud resources are just out there, not managed by IAC. Those old servers, that database someone spun up for a one-off project.
They just become security nightmares, sucking up money.
Exactly. Shadow IT, they call it. And that's where Firefly really shines, I think. Illuminating the cloud, that's their thing. They find these resources, analyze how they're set up.
They can even generate the IAC code to bring them back into the fold.
That's the idea.
Okay, so we're not just talking about managing what you know, but finding what you don't know you're missing. That's a game changer. But do they have, like, actual proof this works?
Case studies, for sure. They talk about this company, AppsFlyer. They're a big marketing platform, global. They were drowning in manual configuration. Firefly helped them auto-generate IAC for over 2,350 resources. Saved them over 300 engineering hours, just like that.
So they're saving money, but also freeing up their engineers to, actually do their jobs, not just clicking buttons. That's smart. But what about smaller companies?
Oh, they benefit too.
Yeah.
There's this other case, Xvoucher. They're smaller. They were struggling with how long it took to set up new environments. Firefly got that down from a whole week to like 2 days. Didn't even have to hire a dedicated person just for IAC.
Work smarter, not harder. Right. Makes sense. So Firefly helps you get a handle on things, no matter your size. Makes sense. But let's geek out on the tech side for a bit. We talked about Terraform, but you also sent over stuff mentioning OpenTofu. It's like a new kid on the block, right? What's the story there?
It's interesting, actually. Kind of shows what's happening in the IAC world. HashiCorp, they make Terraform, right?
Yeah.
When they changed how their licensing worked, went away from open source.
Oh, yeah. People weren't happy about that.
Big time. So some folks were like, nope, we're sticking with the old way.
Yeah.
That's how OpenTofu was born. It's a fork, basically. Same idea as Terraform, but trying to keep that open source spirit. Still early days, but fascinating to see how the community reacts and shapes things.
So healthy competition, usually a good thing, right? But for companies trying to decide, okay, Terraform or OpenTofu, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, it's a tough choice. More and more companies are facing it. Firefly's report actually said almost a third of the companies they talked to found that licensing change disruptive. And right now, the tools themselves are very similar. Main difference is the philosophy behind it. OpenTofu, it's all about that open source idea. Terraform, it's backed by a company, maybe not fully open, but it's a known quantity.
So your head says one thing, your heart says another, but it's not just those two, is it? What about Pulumi, Crossplane, all those? Seems like a lot of choices.
Tons. Pulumi's different. It's all about using regular programming languages, if you're familiar with those. Cross-plane, it uses Kubernetes, that's a whole other thing. Point is, every tool's got its strengths, so it all boils down to what the company actually needs, what they already use, even how skilled their people are.
So many factors. Firefly could come in handy there, helping you make sense of it all. But speaking of complexity, what about when you're using IAC at a larger scale? You sent over something about Terraform modules. Sounds like it could be useful.
Definitely. Imagine those modules as building blocks for your infrastructure.
Yeah.
Let's say you've got a web server or a database setup, you can package that all up into a module and use it over and over again.
So instead of writing the same code every time, it's more like a blueprint.
Exactly. Makes your IAC code more efficient, easier to manage, less chance of mistakes. And you can even share these modules within your team, even with the whole IAC community. Helps everyone use best practices, learn from each other.
So that open source mindset is still alive and well. But bigger scale means more people working together, right? How do you make sure everyone's on the same page? This remote state management thing, that's important for teams, or what is it exactly?
Super important. Imagine you've got like 5 developers all working on different parts of the infrastructure. Each of them, they've got their own copy of the IAC.
Yeah.
That's going to cause problems, conflicts, things getting overridden. Remote state management, it's like, okay, picture a shared Google Doc. Everyone's working on the same file, seeing the latest changes in real time.
Instead of emailing versions back and forth.
Right. It makes working together smoother, prevents issues, and makes it way easier to track changes, roll back if you need to.
Version control is key, especially when something inevitably goes wrong. Which brings me to, we've talked about speed, efficiency, but what about security? Is IAC inherently secure, or are there new risks?
That's the question, right? Everyone gets excited about automation, but IAC can make security better, but you got to change how you think about security too.
Like you wouldn't buy a fancy security system, then leave your front door wide open, right?
Exactly. One big win with IAC for security, you can define your policies in code, and it enforces them automatically across your whole infrastructure no matter what. Reduces the chance of someone forgetting a setting or misclicking.
So it's not just hoping everyone followed the checklist, it's built in from the start. That's reassuring.
Right. And because it's code, you can review it, audit it, see what changed and when. Makes compliance a lot easier.
So IAC, it's like its own form of documentation.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Leaves a trail. But, and this is important, the IAC code itself, you got to secure that too. Just like any code, it can have vulnerabilities.
So it's not just securing what IAC builds, but securing IAC itself. How do you even do that?
Same principles as regular software, right? Strong passwords, access controls, making sure only the right people can change the code. Code reviews are huge EE, looking for security issues. And of course, you got to scan for vulnerabilities, both in the tools and any libraries they use.
So securing IAC isn't really different. It's just applying what we know to this new way of doing things.
Exactly. Same game, new playing field.
It's amazing how IAC forces us to rethink how we do things, not just the tech, but the security, the whole process.
It's a whole new mindset.
Yeah.
And this is just the start, honestly. Remember we talked about everything as code. Turns out, even security policies, compliance rules, that's becoming code too.
Policy is code. Whoa, that's a lot.
It is, but think about it. Your entire compliance framework, defined in code, enforced automatically. Any drift, any change, it's flagged instantly. You can even trigger fixes automatically. No more manual checklists, spreadsheets. It's all proactive.
A whole other level of control. Sounds powerful, but intense.
For sure. But it shows how IT is changing. It's about baking security and compliance into the foundation of your infrastructure
Yeah.
and using code to make it happen.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, but exciting at the same time.
It is. And it highlights something important. We need IT folks who get the tech side of IAC, but also the security and compliance implications. It's not just, can you code? Yeah, it's, do you understand what this code means?
It's bigger than just writing the lines. It's about the whole picture.
Exactly. New way of thinking, completely.
So it's not just about knowing the code, it's understanding the impact, right? But IAC, it's almost like the common language of IT now, bringing development, operations, security, even compliance all together.
That's a good way to put it.
Well,
And it's not just about the infrastructure itself anymore. Remember, everything as code. We're seeing that with how we manage settings, configurations, all that too.
right. Configuration as code makes sense.
Instead of clicking through menus, you define those configurations in code. Terraform, Ansible, those kind of tools. Same benefits. Consistency, version control, automation, all that.
So less clicking, more coding. Got it.
Think about today, right? Apps are complicated, spread across different clouds sometimes. trying to keep track of all those settings in all those places, it'd be a nightmare without a code-based approach.
Which brings us back to multi-cloud, right? All those different environments.
Exactly. Configuration is code. It's essential for multi-cloud. You can make sure the settings are the same across different providers, less risk of something breaking.
One single source of truth, no matter where your stuff is running.
That's the idea. And it's not just for infrastructure either. Network settings, security policies, how the apps themselves are configured, even the operating system setting.
Everything is code, for real.
It's changing how IT works, making it more efficient, reliable, and secure.
We've covered a lot, from IAC basics to multi-cloud, everything is code. But there's one more thing I wanted to hit. Cloud Centers of Excellence, CISOEs. What are those, and how do they fit in?
Great question. CCOEs are becoming more and more important, especially as companies really go all in on cloud. Think of it like a dedicated team, maybe a whole department, whose job is to make sure the company's using the cloud right.
So they're the cloud experts, the strategists.
Exactly. They work with different teams, make sure everyone's on the same page, following best practices.
Why is that so important? Can't teams just figure out the cloud themselves?
They could try, but you end up with everyone doing their own thing, no consistency. Different teams, different clouds, different tools, different processes.
Yeah.
Right. CCOE, they prevent that. They set the standards, give guidance, help everyone work together, make sure everyone's speaking the same cloud language.
Like the conductor of an orchestra, making sure it all sounds good together.
Exactly. And to be successful, a CKE needs a few things. First, strong leadership. People at the top need to be on board and give them the power to make changes.
Can't just be thrown together, gotta have support.
Right. Second, a clear vision, clear goals. What are they trying to achieve with the cloud? What's important? Cost, speed, innovation. They need a plan.
And to carry out that plan, you need the right people, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. A mix of skills, technical experts, business folks, people who can communicate the value of cloud to everyone.
Like a cloud SWAT team. But it's not just about the people, right? You need the right tools, processes, all of that.
Exactly. A good CKOE will use cloud platforms, automation, collaboration tools, the whole 9 yards. Working smarter, not harder.
This has been really eye-opening. CISOEs, they're key to really getting the most out of the cloud. But before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something we've mentioned a few times, AI and ML. We talked about them with IAC, with security. But how are they changing cloud management overall?
It's huge. AI and ML are changing the game big time. They can optimize costs, make things more secure, automate tasks, even predict problems before they happen.
So we're heading towards like AI-powered cloud management.
We're already there. And it's not about AI replacing humans. It's about AI helping us, giving us better information, freeing us up to focus on the bigger picture.
So instead of being scared of the robots, we should be working with them.
Exactly. AI and ML, they're tools. Tools that can help us deal with how complex the cloud is and help us really use it to its full potential.
This has been a wild ride. We talked about the good, the bad, the messy, the amazing. From manual chaos to IIC, everything is code. Now AI changing the game again. It's clear the cloud isn't just a technology, it's a whole new way of doing IT. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
If you remember just one thing from all of this, it should be this. The cloud is powerful, but you got to change how you think, how you work, automate everything you can, be consistent, make security a priority, and never stop learning. The cloud changes constantly, so you have to change with it.
Wise words for the cloud age. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate you breaking it all down.
Anytime. Glad to be here.